few years ago, we took our Road of Shalom teens to Israel during winter break. One Sunday, Monday morning, we were touring the Galilee, and we were watching as people went about their everyday business, going to school, going to work, friends sitting in cafes and catching up. As the day went on, our tour guide announced on the bus, "Oh, by the way, everyone, Merry Christmas." We all started laughing because we had no idea that it was Christmas. In Israel, Christmas is not a public national holiday. For many of our teens, this was the first time in their lives that they had been a part of the religious majority of a country. It was so striking, it was comedic. And at that moment, our students, many for the first time also, understood what it meant to be a religious minority, a Jew living in Christian America. On June 24th of this year, Roe v. Wade was overturned, creating a devastating reality to so many people in this country who no longer have the freedom of reproductive choice. The overturning of Roe was another nail in the coffin to the freedom of religion and the separation of church and state guaranteed by our Constitution. This is a warning sign of the dangerous rise of white Christian nationalism. Now, I want to be clear. I have no problem with Christianity. Some of my best friends are Christian. Really. Like Bishop Dwayne Royster, my friend and mentor, who recently told me and a group of other multi-faith leaders, white Christian nationalism is not Christianity. It is idolatry. White Christian nationalism is the belief that America is and must remain a Christian nation founded for its white European inhabitants, and that our laws and policies must reflect this premise. White Christian nationalists oppose equality for people of color, women, the LGBTQ community, our Jewish community, along with other religious minorities. White Christian nationalism is anti-American and anti-democratic. Christians are free to practice their religion in this country, just as we are, just as any religious group is. White Christian nationalists seek to force those Christian beliefs upon all of us. This morning we read from Isaiah, and the prophet said to us, "Do not hold back. Lift up your voice like the shofar." The shofar is loud. The shofar is unapologetic. The shofar isn't a melodic instrument. It's discordant and jarring. It's time to lift up our voices like the shofar. Because without the federal protections of Roe, 26 states are going to ban abortion. It's already illegal in 12. And abortion bans impose significant burdens to obtain medical care, especially for the most vulnerable in our society: minorities, immigrants, the LGBTQ community, and low-income families. The Torah tells us repeatedly to protect the widow, the orphan, the stranger, the most vulnerable of biblical society. And who are the vulnerable in our society today? And how can we protect them? The First Amendment is meant to protect the minority, the vulnerable. and Christian nationalists are using it to protect the majority. This is not okay, and we need to lift our voices like a shofar. This past year, the Supreme Court also ruled in favor of allowing prayer in public schools. What's the big deal, you might ask? Buddhist prayer, Sikh prayer, any prayer is allowed, so it's equal, right? No. Allowing prayer in public school favors the religious majority and unfairly targets minority students. My wife grew up in Texas, and she was the only Jewish student at her public school. She sat through school-wide assemblies with students and teachers kneeling in Christian prayer. She was ostracized. She felt othered. Prayer does not belong in public schools, and it's time to lift up our voice like the shofar. Religious freedom is so crucial to our Jewish community. The prophet Micah, in looking to the Messianic age, reminds us that every person shall sit under their vine or fig tree with no one to disturb them. And all people will walk, each in the name of their God. And we will walk in the name of Adonai, our God. We will walk in the name of Adonai. And everyone else can walk in the name of their God. We are free to practice our religion and others to practice theirs. When we impose religion, we are walking a dangerous path. Civil rights litigator Roberta Kaplan writes, "The historical record is unambiguous. It has never gone well for us in the past when the government has tried to assert domination by the majority faith. From the Spanish Inquisition to present-day Iran, living as a Jew, a religious minority, in a country that has sought to impose the majority religion has had dire and deadly consequences. Mother Emanuel, Tree of Life, Charlottesville, El Paso, Buffalo, all acts of domestic terror fueled by white Christian nationalist thinking. Christian nationalists want power at any cost. For over 40 years, they have been undermining our democracy by systematically disenfranchising voters through gerrymandering and other unnecessarily cumbersome voting restrictions. According to a recent poll, the 20% of white Americans who strongly embrace Christian nationalism, about 30 million adults, are more likely to believe that we make it too easy to vote in the U.S. It's time to lift up our voice like the shofar. As Jews and as Americans, let's stand up for democracy. Stand up for the voice of the vulnerable. Ensure their voice is not silenced. In our vidui, our confessional that we just read, we said, Al hate shachatanu lefanecha, through my failure to take time to educate myself about complex social problems, through my failure to do my part as an active citizen and make my voice heard, through resigning myself to the way things are rather than work for change. For these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement. But we can't just say the words. Teshuvah requires action. Teshuvah needs follow-through. Teshuvah is a commitment to change. So lift up your voice like the shofar. Or to quote my friend Bishop Royster, we need to tell a different story about faith in Pennsylvania. Here's the story that I want to tell. I want to tell a story about a diverse religious group representing all aspects of society, dedicated to protecting the most vulnerable. Power Interfaith, a network of over 50 congregations in our state, is going on a Get Out the Vote bus tour. We're calling it the Freedom Express. This tour is about restoring faith in democracy. It's about helping people imagine a Pennsylvania where all of us can thrive. And it's about calling out the evils of white Christian nationalism. The tour kicks off at Independence Hall on October 18th at 10 a.m. I'm going to be there. I want you all to be there too. Don't hold back. Lift up your voice like the shofar. We're also working with RAC PA, the Pennsylvania branch of the Religious Action Center, our Reform Movement social justice arm. With our partners at RAC, we've already tackled gerrymandering and fair districting after the 2020 census. And now we're joining together again to increase voter turnout. Congregations in Lancaster, Harrisburg, Pittsburgh, Erie, Altoona, across the state are working together to engage voters. Christian nationalists don't want us to vote. They don't want people of color to vote. They don't want the LGBTQ community to vote. They don't want immigrants to vote. And we're not going to stand that. We're not going to stand for that, because we know that every citizen deserves to have their voice heard. Don't hold back. Lift up your voice like the shofar. On your way out of the sanctuary today, you will see fellow congregants handing out postcards in the lobby. Take a pack of 5 postcards with 5 addresses. Studies have shown that handwritten postcards are much more likely to get the attention of a potential voter than a form letter. Write a compelling, nonpartisan message reminding your fellow Pennsylvanians about the importance of voting. The cards even already have a stamp on them. And thank you to our Berkman Merkaz Limud Bamidbar teens for your help last Sunday, stamping about 1,200 cards. Lift up your voice like the shofar and empower others to lift up their voices as well. If you're joining us online or we run out of postcards, what a great problem that would be. We have another opportunity. Join congregants for a virtual phone bank on Thursday, October 13th, to call Pennsylvanians not yet registered to vote. You can find all the information to register on our website or in our weekly email. Do not hold back. Lift up your voice like the shofar, implored Isaiah. Do not hold back, and encourage others to lift up their voices as well. This work is hard, and it's going to take all of us. But I have hope. I truly believe that if each of us use our voice, we can make a difference. Every time I put on my tallis, I'm reminded of the words, Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor. It is not up to you to complete the work, but neither are you free to desist from it. I can't do it alone. You can't do it alone. But if each of us does our part, if each of us lifts up our voice, we can do it. It can be overwhelming and daunting. The prophet Jonah tried to run from his calling, but National Youth Poet Laureate Amanda Gorman reminds us in her poem, The Hill We Climb, that we need not run. If we bravely face the darkness together, we can find light. We can find justice. She writes, when day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace. And the norms and notions of what just isn't always justice. And yet the dawn is hours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we withered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. It is not up to you to finish the work, but neither are you free to desist from it. It's time to tell a new story, a different faith narrative, to redefine what it means to be religious in this country, to be a religious community that is inclusive, loving, and protecting the most vulnerable among us. Do not hold back. Lift up your voice like the shofar. Amen.